I think as a citizen of Dubai, I'm fairly representative in the sense that I am obsessed with two things. Actually, maybe three things. But the main two things recently have been the cost of housing and transport, mainly because the roads have got so congested. And all we talk about literally is, oh gosh, hasn't the traffic got bad? Hasn't the traffic got bad? And ever since COVID, we've seen the population of the city explode. And with it, we have seen this increase in congestion. So in many ways, it is no wonder that half of the major announcements that are coming out of the World Government Summit this week are about how Dubai is planning to introduce ever more sort of futuristic modes of transport to help alleviate that congestion. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, but maybe you haven't been following the World Government Summit, but for a sort of quite internationally focused event, it's surprising how localized some of the announcements are. You know, we've heard about the bus to rail system. We've heard about the Dubai Loop. And there's constant sort of talk about air taxis. But as it happens, we do already have a pretty decent public transport system. And, we just have a decent sort of transport system. And one of the companies that make up the backbone of that system is Emirates Transport. So what are their plans for this future? I mean, obviously, it's all looking very innovative and very glamorous, but ultimately, we are just going to need cars and buses at some stage in the future. Joining us to tell us more is Dominic Hagerty. He's Chief Transport and Lease Officer at Emirates Transport. He's done me the favour of joining us in the studio. Dominic, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, George. Yeah, very well, thank you. Happy Valentine's Day.
Well, thank you very much indeed. Do you know, Andrew Hosey, who's my producer today, bought me popcorn for Valentine's Day, which is particularly touching because it is my favourite thing in the world.
No secret admirers in the office?
Well, maybe, Andrew.
Okay.
Maybe that's what maybe I've just revealed that on the radio. But yeah, okay. So yes, happy Valentine's Day to you. Let's talk about Emirates Transport. Obviously, it's one of those brands that we all know about. We all hear about it. Massive supplier of public services across the UAE. Are you expanding? Have you added anything to your portfolio recently?
Oh, goodness me, where do we start? Yeah, we're extremely busy. We have a fleet of 40,000 vehicles across the Emirates, ranging a whole different latitude of public and private services, anything regarding mobility and transportation. We're focused on diversifying and expanding our services. We're looking into mobility on demand at the moment. We're looking into car sharing, which has been very, very popular, and also first and last mile solutions. So, for example, you mentioned yesterday the Dubai Loop, mentioned by Elon Musk at the World Government Summit. People will still need a solution on the first mile of their journey and also the last mile. And in also reference to that is Etihad Rail. They are opening their passenger service hopefully at the end of this year. Again, once those passengers reach the station, they will need a solution to get to their end destination. So we're very, very close to the governments in respective Emirates to help providing them with solutions for the future transportation needs of the country.
So when you say first mile, excuse me because I'm not in the industry, but I think of either buses or scooters. Is that what you mean?
Correct. Yeah. So it's buses or scooters or indeed limos or taxi services to get them to their point of departure. Absolutely.
Okay. How about your sort of sustainability goals? It's pretty much impossible to talk about transport nowadays without thinking of, how we can get around without hurting the environment.
Yeah, it's a hot topic at the moment, and it has been for the last few years. We have a very healthy fleet of electric vehicles, also hybrid vehicles. All of our taxis now are hybrid, and we are trying to transition into an electric fleet at the moment there. We are also exploring solutions. Hydrogen actually is very, very interesting. I was at a conference in Europe recently, and hydrogen is very much on the agenda. Once hydrogen or green hydrogen is available to the masses, I believe that's an industry which will be very, very important for the future, especially in buses and heavy commercial vehicles.
I have an electric car. Okay. I have a Tesla. And one of the sort of bizarre preoccupations that unless you have an electric car, you just won't have ever thought about because there's garages everywhere. You can get petrol everywhere. Mm-hmm. But my preoccupation all the time is where am I going to charge? Where am I going to charge? And I can charge it at home. But if I'm doing longer journeys, for example, if I wanted to go to Fujairah, I'd have to look up where I can charge my car. Mm-hmm. And until that, you guys have hundreds and thousands of electric cars in the future, potentially. Are you working with the government to improve that sort of charging infrastructure, if only for your own interests?
Yeah, I think I think one of the things holding back the adoption of more electric vehicles is, as you rightly say, is range anxiety. You want to know that you can charge your vehicle and you won't be stranded wherever you may go. So we have signed some MOUs with certain companies. We do face a challenge installing electric charging points, just in terms of getting the power to where we need them to be. We have recently installed up to 10 solar panelled electric chargers in our operations in Umramul, in our headquarters. So no need for wires.
That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, it's not going to charge your Tesla in 2 minutes, but it will do the job over an 8-hour period just by harnessing the power of the sun, turning that solar power into energy and therefore charging electric vehicles. So it's almost like a stopgap until we get the infrastructure needed to really adopt and see electric vehicles on the large scale. And just to add that Dubai government especially do have aspirations for all their government and ministries to have electric fleets in totality by 2030. So that's not far away. That's less than 5 years away.
Horrifyingly. How did that happen? How did we get to 2025 so fast?
I know. I mean, here we are today. I mean, it's just been a changing environment. Who'd have thought that we'd be in the situation where we'd be talking about flying taxis? I mean, if we did this interview in 5 years' time, I might be arriving in a flying taxi.
I hope so.
Well,
that would
we'll
look
see.
very cool. Branded with Emirates Transport all over it, which would be very cool. Oh, I mean, we have heard just recently that the government plans to, build and install 500 more charging points. And like I say, as an electric car owner, that really can't come soon enough. The other sort of preoccupation that I have on the roads, that I think everyone has on the roads, and although it's half term at the moment, so the traffic isn't that bad, but that is all that people are worried about, is congestion. It has become a real problem in Dubai specifically. Of course, it's always been bad on those roads to and from Sharjah. How do you juggle that as a transport company? Has it become more of a sort of preoccupation for you than it was in the past?
Absolutely. I mean, just personally speaking, in the last 1 year, I mean, I can go from my office to home with my eyes closed. But every day now, recently, I'm using Google Maps because I just want to check the traffic and just not have the worry that I'm going to drive into a lot of congestion. So I'm adopting it on a personal level, embracing technology to make sure I can miss the traffic, as it were. But we can see that there's huge road projects going on at the moment. The RTA really invested in growing the infrastructure. But yeah, we collect in our state-of-the-art control center about 200,000 different data points each and every day. And I'm not going to say we use AI, but we use data scientists and data analysts to crunch all that data and to work out the best routes for our school buses in the morning, work out where our staff transportation buses should go. It really is the difference of 5 minutes. Setting off 5 minutes late or 5 minutes early can make all the difference to the travel time. And that helps to ease the congestion. It helps us to be more efficient as a company, to save money on fuel costs and everything else like that. And ultimately, we want to ease congestion, and we do contribute 40,000 vehicles to the road. So we are a contributor. But at the same time, our school buses, for example, we transport over 250,000 students every morning to school. We have to pick them up, drop them off and take them home again every single day. And that's a great responsibility. That's the most precious cargo anyone could ever transport, we would say. So we are very, very aligned and very, very focused on being efficient, taking the best travel routes and embracing technology to help us on that journey.
40,000 vehicles. I don't think I'd realised how big you were. That's huge. And it really gives a sort of sense of perspective on how important that operations centre must be and how much data you must be gathering. That data is valuable, isn't it?
It is. And we don't monetize the data, but we use the data to help us and our customers. And you're right, 40,000 vehicles keeps me extremely busy.
Yeah, must. Right, lots of people getting in touch, lots of messages about your school buses system. And many of our listeners will know Emirates Transport because their kids travel on your school buses. You actually mentioned how many children you transport to and from school every day. How many is it again?
Just over 250,000 students every single day.
And that's across the Emirates?
That's across the Emirates, indeed, yes.
Wow. Is that area of your business growing? Because, of course, the number of schools is growing, the number of people living here is growing. I presume that therefore means more kids on school buses.
That is definitely one of the reasons, but I think there's a concerted push at the moment from the respective Emirates, governments, agencies to try and push or to encourage students to use the school bus service. A, we believe it's safer. B, it's more environmentally friendly. And C, it will reduce congestion. We want to take vehicles off the road. The government's recognised that. We're here to help enable that transition by, again, increasing our routes, increasing capacity, and welcoming students onto our school buses.
I have to say, I love the yellow school bus system over here. Growing up in the UK, we didn't really see buses in the same way. And I love how they're sort of yellow, just like in the States. And you can sort of spot them on the roads. And hopefully that means that people are a little bit more careful around those school buses because they know that the kids are on them. That brings us to bad traffic. It brings us to bad drivers. And therefore, it makes the job in public transport pretty stressful at times. How do you look after your drivers? How important is driver well-being for you?
I mean, what I want to mention first and foremost is that we are a people-first company. Our drivers are really the backbone of our service delivery. There's no drivers. I'm not sitting in this seat here today, and we at the board and all management recognise that. We have to help them. We have to enable them. We provide enhanced health and wellness initiatives for them. We give fair working conditions. We pay a fair salary, ongoing training. We recognise that if we invest in our people, they will be safer, they will be engaged, and they will be empowered to represent the brand of Emirates Transport. And like I mentioned, school bus transporting children is the most precious cargo. So we recognise that, and that's why we put so much effort into our driver well-being.
It's really interesting to hear there about that emphasis. I mean, I presume you do all sorts of training programs and basically help them deal with what ultimately must be quite a stressful job.
It is. No 2 days are the same. There's always something happening. Always something going on the school buses or in our transportation fleet or in the taxis. People lose their iPhones every single day in our taxis. And the lost and found department is a busy place. So people, please look after your phones. It's as I say, it's it's a moving landscape. The transportation industry is exciting. It's changing, and we're excited to be part of that, and we're excited to be such an integral part of delivering that solution to the UAE and the ever-changing trends which are coming along.
Yeah, I mean, fascinating. I don't think anyone listening to this would have realised just how many vehicles you guys manage. 40,000 vehicles gives you a sense of just how big the scope is of Emirates Transport. And I literally cannot. It's like seeing a juicy bone. I really want to hear more about your operations centre and how you manage traffic and how you juggle, routes and all of that type of thing. But we're sort of slightly out of time in some ways. We've got about a minute if you want to talk about your operations centre in more details.
Yeah, I mean, we have huge workshops, as you can imagine. We service in excess of 100,000 vehicles every year. You might be interested to learn at our technical service station. We take old tyres, we remove the outer skin of those tyres, and we use synthetic rubber to almost put a new life into that tyre for the next 3 or 4 years. We are regenerating tyres. We are reusing the oil that we use as well. We are very focused on ESG. It's an important part of our journey, and we recognise that because wastage is not really tolerated, and we like to make sure that we're efficient and that flows through our entire operations. Yeah.
You're going to have us down to that operations centre. I want to see, the screens. I want to see the maps. I want to see the routing. Very, very interesting. Amir has written in and said, how about these car-free zones that are going to be introduced around Dubai? Obviously, there was an announcement made in the last sort of 7 days or so about how certain areas will be vehicle-free, car-free. Dominic, that sounds quite bad for business for you.
Well, you're right, George. On the face of it, it does sound counterintuitive for us. However, with every cloud, there is a silver lining. So the areas of Karama, Fahidi, Abu Hail, and I believe Creative Zone in Al Quoz will become car-free zones, which we absolutely support. Now, when they say car-free zones, that means ICE vehicles. And for listeners, ICE means internal combustion vehicles will not be allowed. So we fully expect, although the details are not quite there yet, that electric vehicles or electric golf buggies will still be available in these areas to move people from A to B, because especially in the summer, it may be difficult to be a fully pedestrianised zone. It could be a trackless tram system, which we're working on in another project in Abu Dhabi at the moment. But certainly we see this as a positive, and we will be there in some way, shape or form to provide transportation solutions in these car-free zones. So yeah, thank you for the questions. A very good point.
Yeah, really exciting. And I will now say goodbye to you once again. I will allow you out of my studio.
Now?
You can now go.
Thank you.
Dominic Hagerty, Chief Transport and Lease Officer at Emirates Transport. Next time you come in, I want to talk about trams now. I mean, you keep on opening new doors. So thank you very much
Most
indeed.
Welcome.